What's up? I'm Lophiile. I'm a producer and musician from Seattle living in LA. And today I'm going to show you how I approach sound design with a musical mindset. So my basic philosophy with synthesis is keeping it simple. Less is really more with this type of stuff because the complexity is going to come from your musical ideas, your chords, things of that nature. I'm talking about using one oscillator, one filter, not strictly, but getting your mind used to that as a basis and building on top of that rather than a bunch of crazy automation and things like that to your sound. So let's check out an example of that. I have Massive loaded up here. This is really a great synth to learn on and start with because, this is what I learned on. I just love the sound of saws. Even with nothing on it. Doesn't sound amazing, but you can hear my chords, and that's the most important thing. One thing that I've been doing lately though is I'll go to this smooth square and change this to bend plus minus whatever, and I'll get kind of a old school sounding saw, which is a little bit more analog-y. So we'll start with that, put a low pass filter on it, and let's put this envelope to make it open and close here. So even with one oscillator, one filter, it is already a very usable sound, very practical. And to make things thicker, I'll stack it on top of each other with the voicing tab. Press the restart via gate button. And now it's a very thick sound. Let's add some noise to give it a little bit more of an analog-y feel. White noise is fine. And let's put the same envelope that's on the filter on the amp here so it moves with the filter. Love that sound. Just to give it a little bit more movement and make it feel a little bit more analog, I like to mess with the pitch, so we'll put an LFO here. Really, really simple stuff. And now this patch already sounds amazing. I would use this in so many applications. Another really important facet of sound design is how you process things. It's not just synthesis and creating sounds, but if you have like a real instrument or a sample of a real instrument, piano, electric piano, guitar, etc., how you process that sound is also a form of sound design. I'm gonna show you a couple things that I do to give things more depth, movement, and character. So right here I have an electronic piano. It's a Scarby A200. It's a great sounding piano. And I've used this on so many records, but by itself, it's just a little bit clean. So a couple things that I really like to do and use are tape emulations. A really popular one is the RC20. That's already improved the sound quite a bit, but there's tons of these things. There's Waves ones like the J37, and then there's actually free tape emulations that you can download for Reactor. They seem really dope. Another really cool plugin is this M Vibrato plugin. It's actually free from Melda, and I use this quite a bit. Just to give it a little bit more movement. I kind of like the sound of the RC20 and the M Vibrato working together. Creates a crazy little wave. Super beautiful sound. Another thing that I like to use a lot is chorus. My two favorite actually happen to be free. So there's the TAL chorus. that emulates a Juno kinda. Sounds awesome on this sound. And then there is the Blue Cat chorus, which is also free. This is great on everything from guitars to vocals to keys. A little bit different flavor. Lastly, something that I use quite a bit is formant shifting. I tend to use this free plugin called M-Auto Pitch. It's actually technically an auto-tune, I think, so I just turn that part off, and then there's a formant shift knob. It just gives things a little bit more of a lo-fi sound. Sounds really, really cool, really, really interesting. One of my favorite ways to get cool and interesting sounds is to resample. When you take audio and you stretch it out, slow it down, pitch it up, whatever, you can get really cool timbres, you get really weird artifacts. Your sound changes quite a bit. So you can get textures that you can't get doing anything else, no plugins or anything. So let me show you a couple examples of that. I'm gonna add a little bit of a piano line on top. And right now I'm using the Una Corda in Contact. Great sounding piano. So this is how I make things sound a little bit more sampled, a little bit more lo-fi, just more real. So I'll take my line and I will double the speed. You can do that really easily in Ableton with this button here. And I'll put it up the octave. Another really cool tape emulation plugin is this plugin called Reels. One really magic thing about audio is if you have something in time, it also goes down an octave. So that's what I'll do. I'll turn this to repitch and have it. Now it's down to the original octave, original speed, but it just sounds a lot more real. And what's actually happening to the sound is you're having all the frequencies. So all that high end gets muted in a really nice way. Another really simple way to layer is to resample an element you already have and put it up an octave. And not in the MIDI, but in the audio, because then you'll get those really cool artifacts that we were talking about. So I've got this massive layer here. Super cool. But if I freeze it, make a new track, and put it down, change this to Complex Pro, put it up the octave, I've got this. And this can come in and out, layer with the old one, or just be the new way you like your sound. Really think about all the ways you can print something and manipulate it further. This last one may seem obvious, but it's reversing layers. But I think what I tend to do that may be different from a lot of other people is I like to mix the reverse layer with the original layer. You can get some really cool sounding stuff. Somebody created this really cool Juno. I'm using the arpeggiator in it. So I'm just gonna put something down. I'm going to print that, bring it down to this other audio track, and listen to what it sounds like reversed. Just play around and experiment with it. And of course, don't forget to try resampling your drums. So I've got this section here, maybe it's a halftime part. Sounds really dope, but something that's really cool to try is to listen to your drums pitch down And rather than pitching all my stuff down, I'll resample it at a higher tempo. So if I solo my drums and set one of these tracks to resampling, speed it up a lot, and record it, then I'll bring it down to the original tempo. Make sure this is on repitch. It's a really nice broken down section. Honestly, there's really no rules to this stuff. So see what it sounds like when you resample your entire beat and mess with it. You might come up with some really cool ideas that you would never thought of otherwise. Reversing it. Oof, that's wavy. For this tip, I actually want to talk about how to up your musical chops because this is where it all starts. One resource that I really recommend is the Jeff Schneider YouTube channel. He's really good at teaching theory, and what I like about him is he teaches applicable stuff. I would also recommend following Ian Kirkpatrick on Instagram. He's got a lot of cool stories and lives, questionnaires, where he talks about the creative process. I personally found it super inspirational. Other things you can do is look for MIDI packs. There's a producer called Graves that has something called Prism that comes with tons of chord progressions and MIDI, and you can kind of get started without even knowing how to play piano. And while getting chord progressions handed to you is a great start, you're gonna want the ability to go in on bass lines, leads, and things like that. So for you, I challenge all of you watching, if you don't already know, to learn your major scales in all 12 keys. That's where I started, and that's where I recommend all my students start. To start from C, and so on and so forth. That's something you're really going to want to practice because it's just going to help you. And every single key scale is based off the major scale.